Hi everyone, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. Everybody, we are going to be doing a very special class today. We are focusing this class on the speaking section of the IELTS, but what makes this class extra special is, as you can see on the screen, we have a guest with us. This is Adam. He is also Canadian and he has lots of experience with the IELTS exam. He had been an examiner for IELTS for a good number of years and has marked the writing and speaking section of the IELTS exam. He has been tutoring, teaching, helping students pass the IELTS for well over a decade, and he also has his own YouTube channel, IELTS Band Up. We'll talk a bit more about that later. So everybody please welcome Adam to today's class. Thank you for being with us today, Adam.
A pleasure to be here. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, now this is, of course, new territory for us. We've never done this type of lesson. We have a lot of different systems in place. We're using Zoom, we're using YouTube, and many other pieces. So let us know how you feel. Let us know about the audio. Let us know if you can or cannot hear Adam. Feedback is greatly appreciated because if this is a type of class that everybody enjoys and benefits from, then we will definitely be doing similar types of sessions in the future as well. So that's great. All right, everybody. So welcome, Carolina, our chat moderator. It's awesome to have you here with us. Carolina can also help out with questions. Welcome to all of our members, Alexi, Natty, Frost. Nice to see many of you here, and welcome viewers. Students, this class is presented to you by AEHelp.com for academic IELTS. Visit us there. For the general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com, where we have lots of materials to help you succeed. These are the websites that power these live lessons. This is our academic IELTS website here at AEHelp.com, and you can join by clicking that big red button that's just right above my head there. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. We will use this website a little bit later on to speak with our viewers and give our viewers a chance to practice the speaking questions as well as ask questions from Adam and myself. I'm sure many of you have questions about the IELTS exam, how it works, what you need to say and do to get those higher band scores. There's, of course, a lot of confusing information online as well. So today we're here to help you learn the truth about IELTS and effective strategies. The general IELTS website for us looks like this. It's gieltshelp.com. Again, click this big red button there to join our premium IELTS package. And you know, talking about the academic and the general IELTS here, I can help with a quick question that some newcomers to IELTS might have. Adam, is there any difference between the general and academic speaking interview?
Absolutely none.
Nothing, right? The listening and the speaking for general and for academic IELTS are the same. So students, whether you're on the academic or general IELTS website with us, the student partner speaking function here that we're going to use later today, it's the same for both. So you see students from either general or academic in that web page because the speaking's the same. The speaking's absolutely the same. Adam, is there any difference in the, so there's obviously no difference in the format, the questions for academic, general speaking. Is there any difference in the marking? Like if the examiner knows that, hey, that was a general IELTS student and not an academic one, do they mark it differently?
Again, absolutely not. It's just short answer, but no, there's no differentiation whatsoever.
Okay, so there you have it. So it's, you don't get marked easier or harder whether you're general or academic in the speaking. And that tends to make sense. Okay, so all of the strategies that we will discuss today for the speaking will apply to both academic and general IELTS students. All right, everybody. So, of course, we have apps. The apps will link to your web accounts. Check out Academic IELTS Help and General IELTS Help in your app stores under the More in the app. You can link those to your web accounts. Follow us on Instagram for vocabulary, schedules, IELTS_AEHelp, GIELTS Help. And if you have questions for me, you can send me an email at adrian@aehelp.com and admin@aehelp.com. So that's how you can get a hold of me if you don't get your questions answered in this class about speaking. Adam, is it okay if I share your email as well with our viewers?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
sure.
So if you have, so if you have a question, and as I say, Adam has worked for British Council, with British Council. He was doing the testing for how long, Adam, were you doing testing?
Over 10 years, both the writing and the speaking. And I worked there as a IELTS coordinator actually for 5 years.
Okay. May I ask, Adam, which British Council, because of course British Council has departments in just about every major city in a lot of countries.
It was in Seoul, South Korea.
Seoul, South Korea. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So British Council in Seoul, South Korea. And how often did they conduct IELTS exams?
They do it, when I did, they did it 4 times a month. So there'd be 3 Saturdays and 1 Thursday.
3 Saturdays and 1 Thursday. All right. Okay, so just jumping a little bit ahead here. Adam, could you... Oh, there it is. Yeah, I see it. Okay, we have Adam's email here. It's IELTSbandup@gmail.com. So if you have a question for Adam, you can use that email. Now, definitely pay attention, watch this live lesson first, because you might have a chance to ask, and your questions could be answered at some point in the class. However, at the end, if you still have that question, you feel it's not answered, you can send Adam an email as well. Thank you for that, Adam, for that opportunity. All right, everybody. So the schedule today, like I say, we have this very special class. We're spending 90 minutes to 2 hours on this class. We really want to give everybody a chance to, or as many people as possible, a chance to ask their questions, express themselves, get some insights into the IELTS while learning about the speaking section. Then 17th to the 20th, we will have no class. So no class tomorrow and Saturday. I know that's a bit unusual for us, but I will be traveling, so there's no class. So the next class will be next week, Tuesday on the 21st. That will be speaking part 1 at 15 o'clock Universal Standard Time, and then we'll have reading and task 2 the days following. So check those schedules on our YouTube community posts and in Instagram. This is one of the videos that we released recently about the reading section. Check that out when you have a chance. Thank you, Mal. I can see that you just said safe travels. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So check out that video when you have a moment. All right, so let's meet Adam. Adam's been very patient with me introducing the class and everybody. Thank you, Adam. As we've been saying, Adam has worked directly for and with British Council as an examiner for the speaking and writing section for over 10 years. Welcome again, Adam.
It's absolutely a pleasure to be here. And just to let everybody know, this is the only YouTube channel that I fully endorse.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate
that. And I mean that because the only reason I even started a YouTube channel was because there's a lot of good information, but then every YouTube channel seems to have something where kind of leaves me scratching my head. And my YouTube channel is more of just like a little hobby, whereas this is a real professional operation. but I really respect what Adrian's done with this. And yeah, this is the only podcast or channel I'd want to be on, to be honest.
I appreciate you say that, and I really appreciate all the work that instructors, YouTubers put into helping students worldwide. I do have to say that some content on YouTube can be a bit confusing for IELTS candidates, and the video that I actually just mentioned, that reading video that deals with one of these concepts of using skimming and scanning on the reading section to get high band scores, and we disagree with that. Because IELTS is designed in such a way that for those really high band scores, 7, 8, 9 in the reading section, skimming and scanning cannot be the only strategy for the reading section. So it's these types of information that a lot of viewers have to be very careful about, and it's important to always question the instructions that you are given, and that's the goal of this class, is you can ask these questions. We're here to help you. Adam, since we're on the topic of being a speaking and writing examiner for the IELTS, may I ask, what does it take? So what does a person need to do to become, let's say, a speaking examiner at British Council?
You need to have some form of qualifications, whether it be like a master's degree or at least a certain amount of experience. It's a long time ago, Adrian, you asked me, because I applied in 2008. So, and I think it was 2008. At that time, I'd worked at a university for 2 years. I didn't even work at the British Council yet. It's just somebody I knew worked there, and they recommended that and then you have to pass a test. And then you get, sorry to jump around, but yes, you do need qualifications as a teacher. You have to do an interview. They ask you questions, related to, not too difficult, but linguistic questions. And if you pass the interview, then you do training, and not everybody passes the training because it's a bit tricky. There's some subjectivity, and even though they have a lot of rules, it's harder than people realize to be consistent. You'd be surprised how many IELTS training sessions I've been in with many other examiners, and they'll show us a speaking sample, and the range of scores would make candidates' jaw drop. Like, they would be shocked. And these are so-called experts. So even amongst people, it does take regular training and feedback to make sure you are up to date with the standards of the British Council rubric.
Okay, great. Yeah. So clearly the examiners who are interviewing you during your exams, everybody, they're trained and they're supervised. And as Adam said, at the end of the day, they're still human. So we will never have 100% consistency with scores. From my experience over the years, a student's scores can easily vary by a band score. So one examiner may grade a student, let's say, a 6.5, and the other one on another day might give them a score as high as 7.5, or maybe a score as low as 6. So that's one of the reasons that IELTS has what's called the EOR, the inquiry of results, so that students can have a chance, if they feel that their score isn't accurate and they only need a little bit more in, for instance, the speaking section, then they can request the remark for the IELTS, and they might go up. Now, in this class, so far, you've heard Adam and I talking a fair bit, especially me, but we want everybody to interact with us. So as we're talking about these topics, as we get into the speaking questions, we're looking at the chat right now. We're looking at what students are saying. So if you have a question, put it in there and we'll mention it. I'll even maybe put it up on the screen here. So
There was one previous question, and it's
Mhm.
a little vague, but it was at Olinsky. He said, like, what's the most common mistake that, people make on the speaking test?
Mhm.
And there's not one common mistake, but I think it was at Olinsky. I think so. Anyway, the most common issue I see, and I'm in Eastern Asia, but I get people from all over the world, even in Korea, and I did do some examining in Canada. But the most common mistake is because people think it's a test, they focus too much on accuracy. And what happens is when you focus on accuracy, you slow down and it comes at the cost of your fluency. And it also comes at the cost of your range. And if you do look at the online rubric, which is very similar to the one examiners get, it's not as technical, but it's a very good guide. The one word that should stand out is range. And people worry more about accuracy. And two things happen. One, you'll reduce your range of grammar or vocabulary. And two, by focusing on accuracy too much, you might hurt your fluency, which so it's I won't go too long. Sorry, Adrian. I've given this speech too many times, but it's kind of a balancing act between your fluency and pronunciation and your grammar and vocabulary. As you worry more about your grammar and vocabulary, there's a good chance that your fluency starts to decrease. So it's the biggest mistake is I've noticed people sacrifice their fluency in the hopes of increasing their vocabulary and grammar score because they look at it as a test and they're trying to be perfect when that's only half of the test.
All right, so I'm going to make note of that. To reiterate what Adam had just said, in his experience, the one of the most common mistakes, right, or arguably the most common mistake, is that the candidates are not able to balance their accuracy with their fluency and range of grammar and vocabulary. So that is absolutely important to pay attention to. You want your speech to be balanced, and you don't want to be so accurate that you're not speaking fluently or that you're not using enough grammar or vocabulary. So that was a big tip by Adam. Thank you for saying that. And I'm going to add a little bit to that with the strategies looking at the speaking section here. So today's speaking questions we'll do a little bit differently. We're going to look at them based on the tips and strategies and the answers that we're discussing in the class. So the tip here is do not focus so much on accuracy that you lose fluency and range of grammar and vocabulary. And one really good way to get around that, and this is what I've advised to students many times in classes, is to make sure that you're always reflecting the grammar of questions. So today's topic for part 2 and part 3 will be on sports. And here you can see part 3 is let's discuss world sports. So here we have this question: how has international sporting changed in the past several decades? Okay, so as soon as you hear that question, it's important that you recognize that this question is being asked in the present perfect form. Adam, can you ask that question for me just so I can give a sample response to everybody?
Sure. And you're so how that was the
The how has
sorry,
international sporting changed in the
oh,
past
sorry, how has
several...
international sporting changed in the past several decades?
Okay. So over the past 20 to 30 years, international athletics has become quite different, especially with the advancement of technology. The way games are played, the way they are moderated by referees, as well as the way they are broadcast through digital devices, has really been revolutionized. These days, I have been watching a lot of World Cup football on my phone. So, Adam, what do you
Yes.
think that answer would get if I were to give that as my answer in the IELTS exam? So just as a one-off.
Given your speed, like it would be definitely an 8. Because you used pretty good range, but the fluency, it's funny to say this to another native speaker, but your fluency and your linking of sounds, like 7.5 or 8, because you did try to speak deliberately, and I think you did it for the audience to make sure you were, easily understood. I would have picked up on a little bit of lack of linking between words and just a little bit not the most natural fluency. So yeah, that's what I'd say, between 7.5 or 8.
Okay.
For that.
Now 7.5 or 8 is of course fantastic, and that's a great
plenty.
that's plenty, and that's a great score to get. Importantly, notice how I reflected a lot of the grammar of that question. So how has international sporting changed? It has changed greatly. There have been significant changes. So using that grammar, thankfully, Adam did not say that I didn't have enough grammar range, right? But again, paying attention to using that grammar likely cost me a little bit in the sense of fluency. Okay, so let's turn the tables, and I'll ask Adam this question, and hopefully Adam will give us a bit of a different response. So Adam, you're okay if I just fire this question off at you?
Sure.
All right, here we go. So how has international sporting changed in the past several decades?
I'd say international sporting has changed in that it's a lot more accessible. In the past, you would have to live in a country to be a fan of that sport, but in the last few decades, well, especially in the last decades, people can access any sport they want, whether it's cricket or rugby or any of these sports, and they can live in another country and still keep track of their favorite sports teams, players. They can track them on Instagram. There's a much more intimate feeling compared to what it used to be in the past, where you're kind of felt like farther away from the actual sports.
All right, so there you have it. So again, different examiners, slightly different perspectives. I would probably give Adam Ben 8.5, maybe a 9. I felt that there was a lot of fluency there. He answered the question accurately, clearly. I would have liked to have seen maybe an example in there, or perhaps I might have interrupted him. I kind of felt like the answer was going a bit long. But of course, it's important, students, to understand that we're just looking at one question here. And the mark is not from one question, it's taken from the whole. So we're going to jump back a little bit, but again, this is in relation to that tip that we were talking on, that question from Alexi that Adam was answering.
Can I say one thing, Adrian? You touched on something absolutely perfect. Like when I'm teaching students online, and it's not self-promotion, but everybody, like if your goal is a 6, there's many times when people will show that they'll show an example with their own voice that they're a 7, right? But it's the average overall. And it's good not just focus on your mistakes. Like if you notice yourself doing something well, focus on that too. If you're recording yourself or doing something, don't beat yourself up too much. You will have moments where you're 7, and think about those too. Like, what did I do well? Oh, I linked my sounds. I had an example ready. I used a good phrasal verb, something like that. So again, be positive when you're kind of evaluating yourself, because of course you need to improve, but everybody has moments on the speaking test or when they're practicing when they are above what they're going for. And it's just, I'm really glad you said that.
Absolutely. All right. So a little bit more about Adam, and then again, we're looking for questions. So if you have more questions, put them in the chat. Carolina, I see Chen's in here now too. If you see an interesting question, especially if it's related to the speaking section, let us know, and we'll be looking for those. Now, Adam touched on this briefly, and Adam does have opportunities to train students. So if you're tired of me and you want a different perspective, and it's good to get different perspectives, I highly recommend it, then you can again contact Adam. You can even book a private session with him. 2 hours with Adam is $75. Adam does 2-hour lessons because he feels that's the minimum required to really get value from that teaching, that private session. And I agree. I keep mine to 90 minutes if I do that. I don't really do private sessions anymore. I do 30-minute speaking interview assessments. But if you would like to have a 2-hour session with Adam, you can shoot him an email again here at IELTS Band Up, and I'm sure he'd gladly set up a time that will work for you conveniently. Now, keep in mind that Adam is in South Korea, right, Adam?
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm in Victoria. Adam and I right now are on the other sides of the planet. So I'm just about waiting for the sun to rise. It's
past my bedtime.
Yeah, it's sunrise here, and Adam's waiting to get to bed. It's nighttime for him. So we're at the opposite ends of the day. So it's great that Adam was able to join us, and we were able to make this work for everybody.
And sorry, actually, Alinsky had another very good question. Everybody, I'm going to keep looking, but I don't want to just give all the love to Alinsky. Or that's right. Olesky. Sorry, can I read? He asked, what is the best way to ask the examiner if there's a word you don't understand? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, anyway, basically you just have to focus on the word. So like, I'm just trying to think of an example, like if the word, like if there's a question that said something like, how could people better collaborate together? Then you as the candidate, you could say, what does collaborate mean? And the examiner would say, it means like work together. Mm-hmm.
And is the examiner allowed to define a word for the candidate?
Yes.
I did not know that. I thought that they were not. So see, not everybody has all the information. And in that case, like if I were to ask the examiner, what does collaborate mean? Will the examiner always explain that, or will they sometimes just jump to the next question?
They will explain it, but there's always a but with everything. I've seen every strategy you can imagine, Adrian, for people to try and trick the test. So while that is a rule, and some people find out about it, they will try to stall, you know what I mean? Like get more time to think, but you're still not speaking. And a big part of the rubric is the candidate is willing to talk or has the vocab. And the other thing, again, I can tangent or go into many different areas, but people don't realize, like if you do that too much, it'll affect your fluency score and your vocabulary score, not just one part. So yeah, you can do it, and yes, you are allowed, and yes, the examiner will always explain it, but you have a clock, and if you're not talking, you're hurting your exam score if you do it too much.
Okay, so that's the caveat or the danger of doing that, is that you can ask, they will explain, but that's going to cost you fluency and possibly coherence or clarity, natural
because you only have so much time, right, to show what you can do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's about using the time wisely, and that's very important for speaking part 2, which we're going to get into in a moment. I'm just finishing up the example here. So it's a good point. See, Adam, I didn't know that. To my best knowledge, the examiners would not explain words. Also, I know that in relation to this, a lot of students wonder if you can ask the examiner to ask the question a different way. So, like, for instance, that question that we looked at, what are ways that international sporting events have changed over the past few decades? If I don't clearly understand the question that way, and I say to the examiner, I'm sorry, I'm not 100% sure what you're asking me. Can you ask me that in a different way? What can I expect?
Only for part 3 you can do that.
Okay.
So for an examiner, everything is, you can ask what a specific word means for part 1 and part 2, but absolutely not. You can't, like especially part 1, you can't ask the examiner to rephrase the question. They can explain one word. There's a lot of technicalities. They can explain one word if the candidate specifically asks, what does X mean? But there's no rephrasing. However, part 3, we are, or I guess I was trained to, like, even if the student is quiet, right, you kind of give them about 5 seconds, and then you use your sense and like, okay, well, let me reword this in an easier way. But examiners are trained to be pretty good with that. They kind of know your level. And again, I try not to take up too much time talking, Adrian. Sorry, but
No, take
what
all the
happens?
time you need, Adam.
What
I
happens
think
is
students
like
love it. So yeah, no, take all the time you need, Adam,
the
please.
examiners. The first part of the exam, I'll just say in a nutshell. The first part of the exam, part one, doesn't matter at all for your final score. All it's doing is getting a sense, and it's there to get you comfortable. Part two is when the examiner is locked in, because that's where they can really see how well you use connecting words, your range, your fluency. And based on your part two, the part three questions change. That's why part three questions that you find online, they vary so much because it's basically candidates who have done the test and then they share their, questions that they got. But the part three questions are very flexible and the topics will be similar, but the wording can be really different. So if you have a low level candidate, like let's look at Adrian's example. So he said, in your opinion, the first question on the part three, in your opinion, what are some of the most popular team sports in the world and why? And I asked that question and the student is quiet or they don't understand. Well, now, first of all, I would have had the sense before, probably, right? If their part two answer is really short. So I would take that question and say, do people like sports all around the world? Like I would make it a yes, no question. And then the student would say yes. And I go, okay, well, and this is for low level. And I'd say, well, why is that? So if you get an examiner asking you yes, no questions in part three, I'm sorry to say it's not a good sign. You're probably 4 or 5. Because the examiner has like a kind of, I don't want to say sized you up, but they've assessed you and they think, okay, I've got to make things easier. So usually the examiner will do it for you. But in part three, sorry for the long answer, Adrian, but in part three, you can either be quiet and look confused or just, simply say, I'm not sure what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if the examiner in part three is starting to ask you some closed questions where you answer, yes, I do, no, I don't.
And then why? Yeah.
And then why? It's not a good sign. Yeah. So it's not a good sign when the examiner asking you yes and no in part three. Yeah. And, Adam said or made a very good point there. So Adam said, in part one, the examiner's not really marking you. And if I'm not mistaken, what Adam means here is that whether you get a band 5 or a 7 or a 9 will depend mostly, if almost not entirely, directly on your part 2, part 3 response. And this is why I've emphasized in past part 2 speaking classes so much that it's very important to choose a clever answer for part 2 so that you can talk fluently about it, you can talk in detail about it, and you can use a good range of vocabulary, and you can talk about it in a well-structured, coherent way. So you have to choose wisely what you answer in part 2, because that will also set the foundation for your part 3 ideas. Now, having said that, students, it's very important that everybody understands that speaking part 1, we didn't say it's not important, we just said that that's not going to define your mark. Okay, speaking part 1 is very important because that's when you need to get comfortable for part 2 and part 3. That's when you need to remind yourself of all of the strategies or aspects of good communication, like giving full sentence answers, giving explanations to your answers. So this is where you have to understand that there are actions that you take to directly influence your speaking score, and there are actions that you take which of course indirectly influence your speaking score, such as eye contact and body language. Adam and I have talked about this before, but you'll see videos out there that say, oh, body language is not important, they don't mark you on that. Well, no, of course not. The examiner is not going to give you a plus point for moving your hands like I'm doing right now during the speaking, but moving your hands will impact your fluency, your intonation, your natural sounds. So of course it will have an overall indirect effect. Okay, so keep that in mind, everybody. All right, there's indirect and direct ways to impact your score. Looking at the chat, sorry, go ahead, Adam.
And Adrian would know well about this because Adrian has a background in psychology, and in layman's terms, I remember one of my favorite footballers. They used to ask him, "Why do you always wear like a really expensive, beautiful suit before the football game?" And he said, "When I look good, I feel good. When I feel good, I play good." And it's just all like, it's all about confidence. Like in the part one, you should try to relax. And if you do find part one questions online, I always tell students, like, you don't have to practice or memorize anything. Look for the ones that are strange. There's always some strange part one questions. Like I remember questions like about plants, and it seems normal, but like one of the questions I specifically remember was, do you like plastic plants? And I'm just like, even I don't know what I would say to that, right? And that if I was a student, I'd look for those questions that are strange, and then plan for those. You don't have to plan for them all, but look for the strange ones is what I'm saying.
That's a very good tip, to make sure that you practice topics that are not in your comfort zone. So if you are into computers and you can talk a lot about computers and you are doing computer engineering in university, don't practice speaking questions on computers, because most likely you will do just fine if you get those questions, if you're lucky enough. But let's say that you don't have much idea about art. That's the one that I always get students with, Adam, is talk about art, talk about a famous painting that you have seen, and people are like, I don't go to art museums, I don't do art. That's exactly what you want to practice, are those kinds of questions, because those will catch you off guard, and those are the ones that can really be challenging and stressful in the speaking section. Kevin Bowie is in the chat, and Kevin's been very, very curious about this, and we're going to look at speaking part 2 here in just a moment, everybody. Kevin Bowie is asking this question in the chat, and it's a good question. I think a lot of students have this. I'm going to put it at the top of the screen here for everybody. So Kevin is asking, I would love to ask this question. For the speaking test, is it true that candidates score better when they start their speech in part 2 with a lead-in sentence? And what Kevin is asking is with the broad topic and the question, rather than answering the question directly. So what Kevin means here, and this is very common because there's so many YouTube videos on this, is here we have our speaking part 2 cue card for the day, and this one that we're looking at says, talk about sports equipment that you own. So what a lot of IELTS experts, quote unquote, will say is that it's a good idea to start your answer like this. Well, there are lots of different sports equipment that I have purchased, such as baseball bat, hockey stick, and basketball. But the one I would like to talk about today is my tennis racket. So that would be the kind of general lead-in to the response that I think Kevin is referring to. Kevin, if I'm not on the right page here, or if you don't agree with me, let me know in the chat. But I have a feeling this is what you mean, because this is what a lot of people do. And of course, the other approach is to be just a lot more direct. So a piece of sports equipment that I had bought 2 years ago is a floor hockey stick from Kirby Sports, which I use each week when I play at a local gym with my friends. Okay, so here are the two versions to start the answer for talk about a piece of sports equipment that you own, okay? So the first one here as well, there are lots of different sports equipment that I have purchased, such as a baseball bat, hockey stick, basketball, but the one I would like to talk about today is my tennis racket, versus a piece of sports equipment that I had bought 2 years ago is a floor hockey stick from Kirby Sports, which I use each week when I play at a local gym with my friends. Which one is better? Adam, what do you think?
I was reading the comments, Adrian. I apologize. Let me have a quick check. I would say sports. The first one. Yeah, I'd like the first one more, simply because they're both similar, and it doesn't just start with, I would like to talk about today is my tennis racket. Like, it doesn't just have the cookie cutter template style to it.
Okay, so you mean the second one. So then you mean that the
Oh,
better
yes,
answer is
the second one. Sorry. Yeah, I couldn't see it well on my screen. Yeah, the second one is better. Now, it's not, the first one's not bad at all. It's just there's no scoring against it, but it does make the examiner, I don't want to say cautious, but they might think, okay, this person's going to memorize, right? And there's nothing to specifically say it's bad. Like, it really does boil down to your fluency and your range and all these things. But the examiner, once they hear these kind of cliche intros, then they might think, okay, their first reaction might be, okay, probably around a 6. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. It's exactly what I've been telling students in the past classes, but I didn't want to say that because I always want everybody's genuine opinion. So exactly as I've said to many students before, and I will actually take this idiom that Adam used here, which is the cookie cutter template. And this is an idiom. Cookie cutter is a special shape or a form, like a star, for example, or a circle that you use to cut cookies. And a cookie cutter basically means a template. Okay. Generally, examiners do not like to hear templates. It does not help your overall score. They want to hear original language, and any language that's suggesting the use of templates will not benefit you. Absolutely. So the problem with these leading expressions is that they absolutely sound like templates. So as Adam said, you might not be losing marks because of that directly. So again, we get into this direct, indirect. So you might not be directly losing marks because of using that template. It's still fluent and accurate English. But you're losing valuable time that you could invest into good original language with good vocabulary and grammatical range. And now you've lost that time using that template. Am I correct in saying this?
Absolutely. And it's not just for speaking, right? Not to go off on writing, but when I used to sit down in front of 100 essays to check for the day, there are shortcuts. And once you start reading the cookie cutter, there's that idiom again, introduction, you do make sure that they've put their opinion or thesis in the introduction, but then you're like, okay, whatever. And then you jump into the body, because that's where the real writing is, right? And same with these intro statements. People think it's the magic, the magic bullet, but, or sorry, I should stop using
like magic recipe for
magic recipe, or just like this,
yeah.
like this one thing. But there's actually I don't want to get too technical because it doesn't really matter, but there's a weird thing in the actual examiner rubric where they actually state like memorized language. And I've always asked them every time I do training, how can you know what memorized language is, right? And they never have a good answer, but I always love to ask each trainer because they say, well, you kind of know. And I'm like, do we? Because isn't all language kind of memorized, right? When you get right down to it, like we memorize languages in chunks, not to get into the weeds, but anyway, there is definitely parts where you're not supposed to count memorized language for both the writing and the speaking, but that's a very gray area. And yeah, that's a topic maybe in of itself.
Yeah, no, and Adam, I mean that's great information, because at the end of the day, of course, we memorize language. That's what we
That's how
are.
we learn it.
That's
Yeah.
what humans are. We memorize information and then we use that information. It's using that information naturally, okay? And so when I think about, examiner and what does it mean to listen for that memorized language that's wasting time and not getting scores, how do I identify that? Okay, so as the examiner, that's my question, right? So how do I identify that memorized language? And there's basically two criteria that I'm listening for to decide whether or not that was memorized language. So the question here is it memorized language? It's not easy to be an examiner, everybody. Is it memorized language? The criteria that I'm listening for is A, yes, if it is out of context. So, for instance, a lot of students will use that idiom "over the moon," which means very, very, very happy or very excited, very ecstatic. And if it sounds really out of context, so for instance, I say, what is your hobby? And you tell me, well, I'm over the moon that you asked me that question. I'm kind of like, really? You're over the moon that I asked you about your hobby? That's a bit strange. So that's out of context, okay? If I say, what was the happiest day in your life? And you tell me, well, I was over the moon when my fiance asked me for my hand in marriage, then I would say, that's great. That's very much in context. It's fine. Even if it is memorized, it's memorized and used correctly, right? So it's in context. So that's one. The other one that I listen for, B, is yes, if it is way overused. So if I'm sitting there and I have 10 candidates doing the interview, and every one of them uses the word over the moon, even if it's in context by the fifth one, I'm thinking, okay, there's not a lot of value. I'm not going to give band 9 for lexical resource because it seems like maybe there's a new video on YouTube that said use over the moon to get a band 9, and for the next 5 months everybody is going to be using this word, so it doesn't indicate a band 9 score. So it's almost like if you see a video that has that kind of a word, you want to find a synonym, like saying ecstatic, right? And then use that, because that will surprise the examiner. They'll, oh, this person actually says I was ecstatic when my fiance asked me for my hand in marriage, and they didn't say over the moon. So it's kind of like go against the popular opinion at that time. So if you see a video on YouTube that says use these 5 words to get a band 9, find yourself some synonyms and use those words. It'll be refreshing for the examiner. Would you agree with that, Adam?
100%. And I don't want to make too many jokes, but why not, right? A lot of these IELTS YouTube videos, they're kind of like, I don't know if people have this, like nobody watches TV anymore, or if anyone's old enough, but they remind me of like late night exercise or diet commercials. Just do this thing and you'll lose 10 pounds or 5 kilos in 1 week. Like those are most IELTS videos. And I don't want to disparage or criticize people, but there are the one little thing you can do that can maybe change your score half a band is just using better connecting words. Like I've made a video on it, but that's like the only trick. Like, if you're using and, but, so, and too much, and you start using however, there is something specifically in the fluency where you could go up half a band. It might change your overall score. But other than that, I can't give you any like quick tip. You have to learn the language. Like there's no way around it. And to follow on what everything Adrian said was perfect. The other way you could get around of using cliche idioms is if you paraphrase. And you kind of explain it in slightly different terms. Even if you like jokingly acknowledge, like, maybe it's cliche, but I was really happy, like that's the perfect question. And no one's asked me that question in a long time. And the examiner would have to be like, all right, like he paraphrased, he elaborated. It's still, overused, but if you can paraphrase, that's part of the rubric as well for doing well on fluency.
Yeah, absolutely. So paraphrasing, without a doubt, is key. And as Adam's saying, I mean, at the end of the day, you just have to use the language well. And when we talk, when we say use the language well, it doesn't just mean grammar and vocabulary, but you have to have good communication skills, especially for those high band scores. I'm going to jump back a little bit. Adam did say, one really good point to focus on, and it is a part of that communication and language, is using good connecting words. Now, when we talk about connecting words, everybody, what we're really talking about in a big way is what's called conjunctions, okay? And Adam mentioned the and, so, but. Those are what's called coordinating conjunctions in the English language. They're a set group. We use the mnemonic device or the memory device called fanboys. I'll show you that in a second. And these are the most commonly used by English speakers. What you want to do is you want to also learn what's called correlative conjunctions, and especially using a lot of subordinating conjunctions. I'll put these key terms up here in our notes, and you can research those. You can check those out on the websites as well. So if you do, or when you do go to the academic IELTS website, in the full online course, the second tab at the kind of the bottom there, you'll see a writing section. And that writing section deals with using a lot of these...
Welcome to AEHelp's free online writing course.
A lot of these connecting words. So you can check those out. It'll show you those coordinating, subordinating conjunctions. So check those out on the website. They're there in the writing. Okay. So again, learn conjunctions. They're called conjunctions. A lot of people say connecting words because it's an easy way to understand it, but the better term for it is conjunctions.
Right.
So, and you have three families. You have what's called coordinating, correlative, and subordinating. Okay. The coordinating ones are the ones that are often termed as fanboys. Each one turns into a word. So it's for, and, nor, but, or, yet. So, okay. These are kind of the easiest ones, the fastest ones. But again, to boost your score, you want to use others. So you want to use correlative conjunctions, which are the paired conjunctions like not only, but also, either, or, neither, nor. A lot of English experts who have been teachers for many years, like Adam and myself, we often see similarities among language learners across the world. And one similarity that I've seen, and Adam, if this is not true, if you haven't seen this, let me know, but one that I've seen commonly is a fear of using correlative conjunctions. Like people are scared of using neither nor or either or because they think they can't use it properly. And it's not that tricky. Once you start using it, you get the hang of it. And teachers love hearing it because when they hear an international person saying, well, I neither own sports equipment nor do I plan to buy any in the near future, then that immediately sticks out to the teacher as, oh, wow, did this person just comfortably and accurately use neither nor? Great. I'm going to give them some scores for that. So it's kind of...
Especially at the beginning of the sentence, right? Because that's a whole other mental gymnastics, right?
Yeah.
Like, although something, right? Like we're used to just connecting it in the middle, but yeah, absolutely, Adrian. Absolutely.
So learn those coordinating conjunctions for sure. That's fundamental, but definitely use correlative and subordinating conjunctions effectively. And if those are new words for you, correlative and subordinating conjunctions, check those out on the website, check those out on Google, learn them, okay, use them effectively. All right, so what I want to do here, everybody, is I want to just look at this speaking part 2 question. And instead of doing what we usually do where we plan and go step by step through the notes and and each piece of the answer. We're going to be a little bit faster. We want this to be a little bit more interactive. So what we're going to do in this case is I'm just going to give a 1 to 2 minute response to this cue card, which will be a fairly high level response. Adam can analyze my answer. We'll get Adam to analyze it after. And then we'll give a chance to everybody else to practice as well. So we'll start to interact with our students. We'll use the website to take volunteers. We'll show you how to do that in a few moments here after we go through this part 2. So pay attention to this part 2 and this part 2 response. And then think about how you can answer this part 2 question. Plan it out. Think about your answer, because like I say, in a few minutes, you will have a chance to volunteer. Does that sound good, everybody? Yeah, you can give us some thumbs up in the chat there if that sounds like a good plan. So Adam will test me on part 2, and then we'll open it up for questions, and we'll give everybody a chance to practice this part 2. How does that sound? Yeah, we're getting quite a few thumbs up there from members and from viewers as well, so it sounds like a good plan. Adam, can you start me off kind of like how an examiner starts off a candidate for this part 2 cue card?
Let me just make sure I got lined up nice. Okay, so I got to get my examining hat on. So, all right, now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, here's a paper and a pencil for making notes, and here is your topic. I'd like you to talk about sports equipment that you own.
Okay, and then my 1 minute preparation time is up. Let's pretend I've taken my notes and I begin. So one of my favorite sports equipment is my hockey stick, which I purchased at Kirby's Sports about 2 years ago for, if I remember correctly, $40. This hockey stick has a fiberglass shaft and a plastic blade. It's not an ice hockey stick. It's used for floor hockey, so it's lighter and more flexible, and it's not as likely to cause injury. The reason I have this stick is because I have been playing floor hockey with my friends since an early age. I would say around the age of 8. I go at least once or twice each week to either my local gym or to an outdoor rink where we play pickup stick for anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. Every so often, I tend to break the stick, taking a slap shot or making a strong pass, so I have to go back to Kirby's Sports to buy a new one. Sometimes I have to replace the entire stick, sometimes only the blade. I use the stick by holding it usually with both hands firmly, one higher, one lower along the shaft, and then aiming for the ball, handling the ball. This is important for me because I get a lot of exercise and good camaraderie with all of my teammates. So certainly one piece of sports equipment that I can confidently say I own is my trusty hockey stick. Okay, so at this point, I'm guessing, Adam, you'd maybe stop me. What happens? So what happens if I? Okay, so this is a good question, right? And we'll get into that. Sure. What happens if I just kind of suddenly stop and don't keep talking? We'll get into that. But okay, so that's where I'm going to stop. Okay? Right. I'm not going to wait for Adam to interrupt me or say that my time is up. I'm just going to stop there for now. Let's play that as is.
Right.
You're the examiner this time, so this is unusual for me because usually I'm in Adam's seat, but Adam's the examiner, and we want Adam's truth here. That's why we have Adam with us. So, so Adam, you tell us what's going on with my answer. How would you grade that? What are the pros? What are the cons? What's your opinion?
The fluency, I guess like overall it would be 8 or 9 or 8 or 8.5. I noticed that you use so a few too many times, but again, like I criticize you. I just want to be very clear to everyone. It sounds like I'm criticizing Adrian, but everybody says so all the time. But it's something you can mentally say, like therefore, thus. You know, it's something you can get around. But he said the reason I have this stick rather than using because. fiberglass shaft. I mean, if a candidate knew fiberglass, that would be impressive. Camaraderie was the word that stuck out of the whole. That's a band 9 word, right? Like, so overall, I mean, it was very fluent. You would be studying at any university you'd want to in the world with that kind of effort. As far as overall improvement, I mean, you said buy a couple times, you could have said purchase, right? But overall, I mean, that's a band 8 minimum for that kind of score. And you were also saying like, well, what happens? People worry like if they speak too long. Never worry if you speak too long. It's a very rigid test in ways, and I don't want to tell too many stories, but like the only thing the examiner will say, if once 2 minutes hits, they'll just say, thank you. Can I have the booklet, paper, and pencil back, please? That's all they say. And I actually got a little bit of trouble because I was sick of saying that, because you could see the candidate's face. They look like, oh, did I do something wrong? Because it's kind of a cold. So just like, yeah, give me the paper and pencil back, please. Yeah. And I would actually tell people like, oh, thank you. That's 2 minutes. And I got evaluated and marked down for saying that. If you can believe it. That's how strict IELTS is. If you go off script at all and you say something nice, like, thank you, that's 2 minutes, that little sentence got me like -1 point for procedure when they evaluated me. So yeah, I don't miss working for them is another point. I love helping people.
Fair enough. I mean, yes, because as Adam said, a lot of IELTS examiners were also teachers. And as teachers, we empathize with people learning another language, especially since many teachers of English also learn other languages. So I have learned other languages. I speak Japanese at a conversational level. Adam speaks Korean, if I'm not mistaken, fairly well. So we know what it's like to be on the other end of that table. And it doesn't feel nice to interrupt candidates and to be so strict with them. But that is the instructions that IELTS examiners have. And as Adam said, there's a very set script. So IELTS examiners are basically supposed to say the same sentences to every candidate. They're not supposed to go off script, and they get graded and they can lose their jobs, or they can get sent back to training. They can lose contracts, they can lose money. So it's not just strict for the candidates, but also very strict for the examiners. Keep that in mind. And that's why I always tell candidates, don't worry about the mood of the examiner or what the examiner says. They're not doing it because they're trying to be mean. They're doing it because it's the way they're instructed to conduct the exam. So thank you, Adam, for that assessment.
But that said, I always encourage people, this is a larger audience than I have ever had. If your examiner is going out of their way to be a little bit just cold or rude, I encourage people to complain. Because especially if you're in an area, if you're in Canada or any area where there's IDP and British Council competition, people will get on the message boards, and then those centers compete with each other. And once they get a bad reputation, then they tell their examiners unofficially, hey guys, just knock it off. Now, where this doesn't work, sadly, is if probably nobody here is watching in China, but in countries where it's just IDP or just British Council, the examiners there are notoriously rude because there's no competition. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like there's much repercussion or punishment for being rude. But I can tell you firsthand, when I was in Korea, there was IDP and British Council. And if there was a rumor that candidates were being a little rude, then they told us, knock it off. And
you mean the examiners, yeah.
Yeah, like please be friendlier. Mm-hmm. Even though that's not official IELTS policy, this is where the business side sneaks in.
Mm-hmm. So I think in a nutshell here, the advice and the takeaway is that if you feel you're not being treated fairly, don't just quietly take it and walk away, but once you've returned home and you've had a chance to take a couple of deep breaths, write an email. Say, I had a bad experience at your IELTS test center. I felt the examiner was unnecessarily rude, interrupted me all the time. Voice yourself, okay? It's important that you do that. The IELTS is supervised, so there's everybody has a boss, and it is a business, and they do want to make sure that it's not that it's professional and that it's not unnecessarily painful for candidates. So that's a good tip.
And and even though, like, I'm not trying to be a hero, Adrian, even though I kind of hated doing IELTS for the last 8 years, not hated, but it's not fun. Like, I'd rather teach. It gives me so much energy. Like, it's midnight now. I should have been in bed 2 hours ago, and I could do this for 4 more hours because it's fun. This is a great audience. It's fun to help people, but I never understood examiners being rude. Like, it just drives me crazy because people spend so much money. It's such a high stakes exam, and now you have to deal with someone who doesn't want to be there on top of it. So I really encourage people to complain because I find it inexcusable. Like, I was one of the guys that did I forget the acronym. You know it better than me, Adrian. When people challenge their grades, EOR?
Yeah, EOR, yes.
You remember better than I worked there. I was I would listen. I was the guy who did the speaking sometimes. Like, I would check. And when I heard, like, I have to listen to the examiners, and sometimes they'd just be like this is the speaking test for the International English Language Testing System conducted on and it's just like, come on. Like, just
be human.
Just be nice, like, and again, I'm not trying to get brownie points from people listening, but I just didn't understand it, even though I didn't like it. I didn't understand why examiners punish the candidates. Like, if you don't like it, then quit. That's what I did. And now I teach for a lot less money, but a lot more enjoyment.
And, in this sense, a very important tip for everybody is when you are in your exam, and if you get one of these examiners that, just they don't seem too friendly, in that moment, don't pay attention to it. Do your best. So don't let that get under your skin. Now, there's an idiom for you. So don't let that get under your skin. Just do your best and then make your complaint after. You can also get the opposite. Here's an interesting one, Adam, and I've seen this and I've heard it from candidates as well, where the examiner is overly friendly because they've seen a lot of this, and so they say, okay, enough is enough. I don't care if I get fired or if I get reprimanded by my supervisor. I'm just going to be really friendly and kind of smile and really make the candidates feel comfortable. That can also be a negative, interestingly, because the candidate will feel too comfortable. They feel like they're talking with their friend and they're just having a little chit chat, and they start using very short, friendly, conversational style English, like, oh yeah, sure, no, last weekend was great. Oh, thank you for that. And it's these very short, and then of course their band score isn't all that good because even though the examiner's friendly, they're still marking their language, and now they aren't really speaking professionally because they feel too welcomed. So as the candidate, you're always there to do your job, which is to show your best English, to show your most fluent language with the best vocabulary, best grammar that you have, accurate language. So you're there to do a job. You're not there to worry about your examiner's mood or perspective. Whatever that may be, you can deal with it later once the exam is
don't
over.
make excuses for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you, Yep.
Exactly. Okay, so getting back to the point here, let's take some volunteers for this part 2 cue card. And what we'll do something kind of fun. So we'll take volunteers to practice part 2 with us, to ask some questions, and then Adam and I will independently give you feedback as much as possible. So we'll do our best to kind of ignore each other's comments, and you'll get an idea of how 2 different examiners might mark the same person. How does that sound? That sounds like a bit of fun, I think, right? So to do this, students, we're going to do it as usual through our website because that's where we can interact. Now, again, we've got a lot of systems in place here with Zoom, YouTube, the website. So be patient. We'll do our best to make it run smoothly. Go to the website, go to AEHelp.com. Carolina or Chen can put the instructions in the chat for you, so follow their instructions, okay, for volunteering. Pay attention to your peers. A lot of the comments, the mistakes, they're common among people. So again, on the website, if you're new to the website, aehelp.com, you can join the Premium IELTS by clicking this big red button there. Again, it's a one-time payment. It's lifetime access. Then you're in your My Student account. And in your My Student account, you've got a lot of goodies. You've got computer-based practice tests, full online course, and then you have this student partner speaking here. So you can click on that. By the way, students, you can use this for free, this function on the website. You do not need to buy the website for this. We just want to help everybody find a speaking partner and practice. So click on the student partner speaking. Accept the terms. The terms mean that you are responsible for your own language. Do not tell people personal information. Don't share your phone number. And then you're going to see a list of people in here. We have Alexi, we have Lola, we've got lots of students in here. And you will see me in here. My handle will be Master. It's just easy to identify. I did not pick that, Adam. Those are developers. I'm not that egocentric. I'd like to believe. So you'll see Master, and then beside Master, you'll see that blue envelope. You can click that blue envelope and send me a message saying I want to volunteer. I can see that Lola is here. Lola says, hi, I want to be first. Sure, Lola, let's reach out to Lola. So I'm just going to make sure you're still there. Lola, are you there? So let's try to see if Lola is here with us. So we'll reach out to Lola. Hi, Lola.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Adam, can you hear Lola?
I cannot.
You cannot hear Lola. Okay.
Oh,
You should. Can everybody else hear Lola in the chat? I can hear you, Lola, through the website.
How about I turn my, maybe if I turn the YouTube on and the Skype off. Let's try that. Let me try that.
what will we do?
Okay,
One
no,
sec.
we'll check
Hold
it
on.
out here. I think
No,
you should
hold
be
on.
able
I
to
think I
get.
should.
Yeah, you should be able to get audio through both Zoom and through YouTube here, as
Yep,
long
should
as.
be.
Okay, Lola. In the meantime, can you tell us where you're calling from, why you're taking IELTS for all of our newcomers?
Okay, hello everybody. I'm from Uzbekistan and from the capital city of Uzbekistan, which is Tashkent.
I can hear, by the way.
Test to get into the University of Journalism.
University for Journalism. Yeah, so
Ah.
definitely want some good English skills for that, right, Lola?
Yeah,
Okay. The world listens in English, right? So, okay, Lola, that's great. Thank you for volunteering and being courageous. Lola, let's do this part 2. Okay.
Okay.
All I want you to do is just give us an answer. I will start you off for this part 2. You're going to see the questions on the board there in just a moment. I will start you off, give a nice response to the best of your ability, and then we'll talk about what you said, and then you can ask us questions about part 2 as well. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Good.
All right, Lola, then here we go. So I will show you some questions. You will have 1 minute to think about your answers, and then you will have 1 to 2 minutes to speak. Talk about sports equipment you own. Your 1 minute preparation time is up. Please begin speaking.
Okay, the sport item I own is a bike. It doesn't have wheels. Instead of them, it has two connected metal with it. It is red and black. It has an electronic small screen which says how much I use calories and how much kilometers I run. From my dad, and I had been dreaming about it to have since I saw it on TV as advertisement, but it was too expensive, about $250. But My dad got it a New Year's sale. I use it without any difficulty. I just then start it and at least 3 or 4 weeks. Then it's important for me. It's me to train a day.
Okay, your 2 minutes is up. I'm going to stop you there, Lola, and we will now go on to part 3. I will take back the questions. Please put your note paper to the side, turn it over, as well as the pencil. Okay, Lola, first of all, good job. So you were breaking up a little bit. I think we've had this issue before where when you're speaking fluently, we start to lose the connection there a little bit. But no, Lola, overall, that was quite good. So instead of me giving the feedback first, so I will give my feedback. I have a pretty good idea of what band score I would give you and what I liked and what I would like to see improved. But I'm not going to say anything just yet, okay? I will let Adam give his opinion first. So, Adam, objectively, what do you think about Lola's answer? What would you grade her as a band score? Give us your thoughts, please.
Well, I apologize. The sound wasn't perfect on my end, but I caught most of it. Was it 2 minutes, Adrian?
It was roughly, and it was really cutting out, so I figured we'd stop there, but it was roughly.
Then I must have missed something. From what I heard, I would say it's a 6 overall for the following reasons. For fluency, she kept talking. She was willing to speak at length. A little bit, it wasn't like it. It's almost a 7. That's the funny thing, right? It's almost a 7 because when you get up to a band 7 for fluency, 7 is without noticeable effort, and it felt like there was effort. Okay, so I wouldn't give her a 7 for fluency. Next, we go on to lexical resource, which is she used enough vocabulary to talk about the topics at length, but there were no like really great collocations. Like she mentioned metal, but again, maybe that was my connection, but it wasn't quite enough for a 7. So there's like low 6 and high 6, but like the lexical or the vocabulary resource was enough for a 6 for sure, not quite enough for a 7. To improve that, just again, I couldn't catch everything, but like a few more, like a little better range is what I want to say. Few grammatical errors, but again, the simple sentences were well controlled. But like how much kilometers I run instead of how many kilometers. So like countable or uncountable, that kind of thing. I don't want to go into too much detail. So overall, the range of grammar wasn't that big, or I have been dreaming to have. This also comes into pronunciation. Like this is the one thing I really wanted to focus on. So that's why I saved it last, is the pronunciation. Like she started like, the one thing I want is a bike, right? But if you were saying it fluently, it should be the one thing I want is a bike. It's not is a bike, it's is a bike. And this final consonant sound with the next vowel sound, this is something I really try to push people to be aware of. And it helps your speaking. It also helps your listening, because there's a lot of linking in every language that you just don't think about it. So is a bike, or I have been rather than I've been. Like using contractions instead of I have, you should say I've, and that will help your pronunciation score. So 6 overall, but very close to a 6.5. The places where I tell my students like we're a nice examiner, like maybe he had a really good lunch or he or she.
Said that, yeah.
The one thing, the areas where you might get 7 for me would be like maybe fluency and also maybe pronunciation, because you were very clear and your accent's great. Like there was no difficulty understanding you, but I just felt like there wasn't enough linking or not enough emphasis. And you don't have to be an actor, but if you could be a little bit of an actor and emphasize certain, like, oh, I really loved it. I was just dreaming about this bike. Like just a little bit of, personality, it does matter. And it's if it's not your personality to do that naturally, I'm sorry, but it absolutely helps, right?
Yeah, I've said that in the past, Adam, where I say, emphasize it a bit. Lola, would you like to hear my evaluation?
Yeah, I would,
Okay.
for sure.
So here's where everybody will notice something very interesting, that although examiners have slightly different views, they're pretty much going to be the same, whether they're in Korea like Adam is right now, or whether they're in Victoria, Canada like I am right now. And even though we have obviously different experiences, the years and years of experience lead us to very similar conclusions. So I was actually thinking about a 6.5, but I was also thinking about the 6 to 7 range. So the range that we were thinking in is identical. And I was thinking 6.5 for this response, for many of the similar reasons that Adam was, and I picked out some of the similar strengths and weaknesses, but just did with different examples. So here, I agree, Lola was fluent, but it did feel like there were a couple of places where effort was needed to maintain that fluency. Also with the lexical resource, just like Adam said, you said it doesn't have wheels, it has 2 connected metal, and I think what you wanted to say, there's metal discs. And I think what you wanted to say is it's an exercise bike. It's not just a bike. And I was like, okay, when you say bike, I'm thinking like bike that you pedal outside, Lola, but you're really focusing here on an exercise bike, right? And another way that you could say that is a stationary bike. Okay, a stationary bike is
But I said it as a e-bike, electronic bike.
Right. So see, we're having a little bit of an issue having that clarity, right? And when you say that topic, everybody, you want to be super clear on what that item is that you're talking about. Now, not just that, Lola. So I'm not just basing that on that. I'm basing it on a few other key points here. So notice how Adam caught the how much kilometers instead of how many kilometers. I didn't focus on the much. I focused more on the run. I run. You don't run on a bike. You bike on a bike. Okay. So running is, we do it on our feet. So for me, that was an incorrect vocabulary and context, right? So we picked out different samples, but the same concepts of it, right? And so you had some really nice language features for sure, where you had some very nice fluency. Like I liked the part where you said, I use it at least once or twice each week. So it was a nice kind of visual communication with good fluency, good contextual English. But again, just easier fluency, more emphasis, more accuracy in the grammar and vocabulary would have definitely pushed your score to a more of a 7, even a 7.5 with those. So Lola, overall, a very good job. I mean, I wish I could have a band 6 or 6.5 level in other languages as well. So it's a great score to have. Lola, do you have any questions for Adam about the speaking section?
Not about the speaking section, but I have a question that what I should do when I left 1 week to my exam. I just don't know what to do when it comes to my exam, when days left my exam. So what I should do? Should I do more practice exams, tests?
So Adam, are you getting the question clearly? Can you
Yeah,
hear?
I'm on a bit of a delay.
Yeah. So what Lola is asking is, she's got 1 week left before the official exam. What should she do? So what should she focus on?
Okay, I actually, Lola, that's a typical question, and here's what I recommend. It depends how crazy you want to be. If you're alone, it's a lot easier, but the more time you practice speaking out loud, it doesn't matter what it is, you're training the physical connection between your brain to communicate more comfortably in English. That's one thing. Like you could literally say, oh, now I'm making a coffee, and after coffee, it sounds insane. You don't have to do it forever, but it really does work. But to be specific about topics, go through, like, I'm sure every country has a list of bootlegged or, questions. And again, much like I said with the task 1, look through the ones that are less familiar. And you don't have to practice them all, but you do want to have speaking points, especially for the ones that are more difficult. As Adrian mentioned before, like with art, that would kill me. Fashion, that would kill me. So I would focus answers on fashion, and I would need to pretend that I care on the real speaking test. I guess I want to sneak in too, like, I know it's a little off topic, but even for topics that you don't like, that's okay. Sometimes I look in people's eyes and they look a little embarrassed, like, well, I don't really like fashion. That's okay. Just explain why you don't like fashion. That's part of your answer too. You don't have to follow the task 2 thing perfectly. But you said 1 week to go. Speak as much as you can. Think about topics. Also remember the task 2 thinking about those topics as well, those tie in very nicely with the part 3 speaking questions, because they're always about society. They're always your opinion about like what people should and shouldn't do, or what groups of people do. So really focus on both the task 2, focus on questions you don't know and make points, and look at task 2 writing questions and know that they will help you with your part 3 speaking, because they're always about society, pros and cons, and what people should do or what they did do, and stuff like that.
That's great advice. So there's some really useful, applicable advice, everybody. So 1 week before your test, grab a list of task 2 writing questions and talk about them loudly, right? So Lola, try that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And can I sneak in one tier 2, Adrian? Sorry.
Sure.
One other thing, I tell my students to do, but I don't know how often they do it because they don't want to listen to themselves. Record yourself. And what you can do on top of this is you can get your stopwatch out, and you could use a dictation app like, Google Docs, or, Microsoft has it built in now. And you can actually record yourself, 1, the audio, and 2, you can actually do the dictation. And the one thing I recommend to my students is, like, you have about 2 minutes. If you're fluent, you should be saying about 140 words per minute, and you can actually count the words. Now, that's not everything. If you start noticing that you've used the same words over and over again, that's not helping your fluency score, because now you're relying on repetition. But at least you can get an idea of how many words you're saying in that 2 minutes, because it'll give you a word count. And you can also hit Control F and type in the word but. Well, how many times did I say but? And then you can see that. You're like, okay, well, maybe I should start, using some synonyms for this word. Or how many times did I say like? Oh my gosh, I said it, 10 times. Okay, I need to start using some synonyms for that. Now, that's not really helpful a week before. I apologize, but I did want to sneak that advice in.
It could be. I mean,
somewhere.
It could be. Like you mentioned with mine, Adam, that I said so often, right? So again, that was some really useful advice there, everybody. So keep that in mind. So use Google to transcribe your response, so you can turn your speech to text and see if you're able to reach that 140 words per minute. Now, some people will actually speak too quickly, so they'll have maybe 250 words in the minute, and then you realize that, okay, maybe I'm speaking too fast, right? So it's a good way to measure your speed and your content and to figure out how much repetition. That's wonderful, useful advice, Adam. Thank you for that. Okay, and everybody, I'm typing that up on the board here, or on the screen here as well. So everybody's getting that advice. That's some great advice for everybody. Yes? Some thumbs up. Okay, Lola got it. We can hear you, Lola. Lola, speak. You're there. You're with us. Yeah. All right. Lola, thank you for volunteering. We'll take one more person for this part 2. Lola, have an awesome day. Thank you for being the first volunteer with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lola.
Thank you.
All right, and good luck for Lola on her exam in a week. Okay, let's take another person. Let's take maybe let's take, I don't know, I'm just kind of randomly, here's somebody that we haven't seen before, one of our premium students, Sharika. Let's see if Sharika is available. Sharika, are you ready? One of our premium students that we've never heard from, so hopefully we want to give everybody a chance, newcomers and returning students. Sharika, if you're still there, let us know, and then we'll do our best to make the connection here. Again, students, a bit of patience is appreciated. There's just a lot of moving parts here. And of course, we have a 6-second delay with YouTube. YouTube always has a slight slight lag even with the fastest streaming. So Sharika, if you can hear us, if you see us, let us know if you're still there. We'll give you a 5-second count. All right, we'll try somebody else. Domenico, let's see if Domenico is here. Domenico, are you ready? One of our regular students, also a premium member from Sicily. Hopefully Domenico is able to connect with us. And we've got about 30 minutes left for this session, everybody. So hang in there because you will get a chance to ask questions. I will open it up for questions here as we reach out, and keep asking questions in the chat too, everybody. We're looking at the chat. Our moderators are looking at the chat. All right.
Hello.
Hi, Domenico. How are you?
I'm great. And what about you?
I am doing extremely well with such a great group of people. How can I not be well, Domenico? Right?
That's what I'm holding. I pick me up coffee to back me up. And I'm up for this speaking, for this response. I'm up for delivering this response.
All right.
Let's have a stab at it.
All right, let's do it, Domenico. So I will start you off for this part 2, and then just like with Lola, we'll give a little bit of feedback independently as much as possible, and we'll go from there. So here we go. Your part 2 begins now. Talk about sports equipment that you own. Your 1-minute preparation time is up. Please begin speaking.
So, I'd say the sports equipment that I own and use frequently is a pair of Adidas running shoes, which I purchased for about 150 euros from a local sports store about a year ago. And I'd say they've become an essential part of my daily exercise routine. I use them for both running and jogging on the seaside promenade, as well as for workouts at the gym. They are designed specifically for running with features like cushioning and support to help absorb the impact of each step and prevent injury. They are also lightweight and breathable, which makes them comfortable to wear for extended periods of time. The reason why this pair of sneakers are my favorite sports equipment is because these shoes help me stay active and maintain my physical health. I'd say doing physical exercise is a cornerstone of my life, and having a good pair of shoes that are comfortable and supportive makes my workouts easier and more enjoyable. Besides,
Okay, your 2 minutes is up. I'm going to stop you there, and we will now continue with part 3. Please put the note paper to the side and turn it over. All right, Domenico, first of all, I'm not going to give any kind, I don't want to influence Adam's opinion here, so I'm not going to say too much, Domenico. I will say my evaluation after. I'm going to hand it over to Adam for this. So again, that was roughly 2 minutes. I was typing some of what you were saying so I can reference it. So it's hard for me to look at the time and type and control everything all at the same time, but roughly 2 minutes. So Adam, if you can give us your evaluation as an examiner, what you would think about that answer and how you would score it.
Well, I first of all, you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
You can. I absolutely want to focus on the positive. There were so many good collocations, and by collocations, I mean I can't hear words Adam. That, you have good awareness. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I almost felt like you were reading it. Like it was so like the collocations, like the word choices were so good. Like local sports store, essential part of my exercise routine for both running and I didn't write the finish. But yeah, designed specifically for. You talked about the impact of running, the impact to cushion the impact. I think you said they're breathable, extended periods of time. There's a lot of great language here, like a lot of great. Definitely, your strongest point was the lexical resource. I would give you. Your score is actually very challenging. I would give you an 8 for lexical resource. Yeah, that was definitely your strongest. Great range and great accuracy. Really, really good there. Grammar, you did use some relative clauses. You said which help, you did use them, but I don't know, like I'd almost need to hear it again because I felt like the range wasn't enough for an 8, but it was quite accurate, and the range was enough for a 7 for grammar. Now we get into, this is the gray area of being an examiner. You spoke slowly. In layman's terms, you spoke slowly, but it wasn't boring. And that's weird to say. And it also, like, that's the one where this is where examiners kind of have to, like what I'm doing now, think. And my initial reaction for fluency would be 7, but there's a chance other people would give it a 6 just because of the speed. And the pronunciation, I would also give a 7 because you were very clear. Your accent didn't affect my understanding at all. There could have been more emphasis, but overall it was easily understood. And some people, they might, like, this sounds rude, but like a non-native speaker, they might say, well, her accent, or the accent was a little bit, I don't want to say thick, but I could understand everything you were saying. And it had minimal effect for me. So I would give you, I'm kind of surprised. I would give you a 7 overall, but if I go by the rubric, 7 overall. Like I said, there's a chance the fluency might go down to a 6 if the examiner was a bit, I don't know, just focusing on the speed. But you were very deliberate, but I just felt like you kept a good speed, and maybe that's just how you communicate. That's an interesting one. So there's a chance it could be 6.5, but I would give it a 7.
All right, thanks for that, Adam. Domenico, I'll throw in my 2 bits. And again, interesting. So here is where everybody will very quickly learn that examiners might not give you the same score, might not, but they will certainly be very close to each other. So Adam said 7. Long before Adam started speaking, I was thinking 7 to 7.5, basically for the same reason. So Domenico, your lexical resource, your range is outstanding. I would even score it as high as a 9, to be honest with you. I thought that you were using, seaside promenade for running and jogging. It's got cushioning to support and prevent injury, lightweight and comfortable. So there was just a lot of great language there. Your connectives, you didn't have a lot of redundant language, so wonderful use of vocabulary. You used some idiomatic language, Domenico, that was really good. So your that was outstanding. What I had.
Sorry, Adrian. Sorry to cut you off. Well, as far as my way of speaking, I'm a bit on the slow side, even in my native language. When I speak Italian, so I try to speak as fast as I can, but I can't.
Yeah. So remember what Adam said way before, almost kind of at the beginning of the class, when that first question was asked? It was the question of what's one of the most common challenges or mistakes that he has observed in his 10 years of marking IELTS exams. And Adam said that, a lot of focus on accuracy and even lexical resource will cost you in fluency. So in your case, Domenico, it might be worth sacrificing a little bit of your lexical resource to try to see if that will help you speed up your language a bit. Might be. Okay. So because that's exactly where I felt it was on the lower range, was also fluency. So I was also thinking 6 to 7 in the fluency. I would have given you probably an overall maybe 7.5. I would be surprised if any examiner gave you under a 6.5. So you're definitely 6.5 to 7.5 with that response. But you see, Adam would give you a 7. I would maybe even lean towards the more lenient 7.5, depending on how you did for the other parts of the speaking, of course. So as Adam and I said, part 3 plays a big role in the final score as well. But definitely you're in the right direction. And the topic that you chose was very good. Lola, the same thing, a very good topic to kind of go into part 3. So that was really good. Domenico, do you have a question for Adam about the speaking?
I couldn't agree more with him. So maybe I should focus on improving my fluency, and that's what I'm doing these days.
Yeah. And one way that you can do it is what Adam said before, right? Record yourself, transcribe it. So get your computer to change your speaking into text, and then time yourself. So time yourself for 1 minute and see how many words you end up with in that 1 minute. And then try to push yourself to be faster. So you can even look at that text once the computer has changed your speech to text. You can look at that text and re-say it. Say it again, say it faster. So force your brain to get into that pattern of faster language.
Yeah, I
right?
said there's a bit of nervousness that I need to overcome. I'm working on it, on this kind of feeling, which sometimes holds me back from speaking faster.
Well, practice and doing the kind of volunteering that you're doing right now is a great way to overcome that anxiety. Domenico, thank you so much for volunteering. A big thumbs up. That was a great answer. I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, there was a lot of vocabulary there for everybody in that response.
Thank
and
you
we'll
so
talk
much.
again. Bye, Domenico.
Bye.
All right, everybody. So that's part 2, and I think we've got a lot of concepts around part 2 now. I'd like to give some other people a chance and just jump into part 3 as well. Let's see if we can find someone that we haven't spoken to here. So we're just going to jump into some part 3 questions and answers, and also get into some questions about the IELTS and speaking. I saw that our moderators are doing a good job. Chen, I did see that you emphasized a couple questions that students were asking. We'll see if we can get to those. Again, students, if we do not get to everybody's questions, not a problem. We will show you the emails where you can send us questions again in a bit. Okay, so Owen, if you're there, let us know, and then we can jump into a couple of part 3 questions. Okay, so Owen, are you ready? If you're still with us, give us a sign. Let me know that you're still there. You haven't left for a sandwich. All right, Owen, I'm going to try to reach out to you, and hopefully we can connect here. Hi, Owen. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I am doing fantastic. I think we've got an okay connection. We'll be able to do this. Owen, first time I think we're speaking to each other, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Owen, where are you from?
I'm from Vietnam.
Okay. What part of Vietnam?
I'm from Vĩnh Phúc, a province of in northern Vietnam.
In the northern region. Okay. And why are you taking the IELTS?
I guess I love English, so I just try to achieve some certificate.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I mean, you never know where it can come in handy. IELTS is definitely one of the most useful certificates you can have with you in the world today for a lot of reasons. So it's a good idea to have it. Okay, Owen, I'm going to ask you a part 3 question. Give me a nice full sentence answer, and then we'll give you some feedback independently, okay?
Yes.
Are you ready? Here we go. Let's discuss world sports. In your opinion, what are some of the most popular team sports in the world?
So this is part 3, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I thought I will practice part two with you. So can you repeat the question?
I sure can. In your opinion, what are some of the most popular team sports in the world and why?
I think it probably is football. I think because football is the most popular games in the world. We can see that it is evident in the World Cup that is takes place every 4 years.
Is this the same in Vietnam? Is football also the most popular sport in Vietnam?
Yes, football is Vietnamese people are very love playing football very much. My friends, my male friends, they play football at the weekends religiously, and every time there is a match between our country with another country, I can see that there is a lot of um, like a lot of stories that is on the internet, like on Facebook. Uh,
Okay, let's stop there. So that's good. We'll take a look at that. So that's how part 3 kind of works. It's connected to part 2. You get a question, it's more specific, and then you get a question that's related to your answer or related to your situation. Adam, give us some feedback. What do you think?
There was too much feedback to give really good feedback. Pardon that. The 6-second delay. So definitely the speed was an issue, but I had to kind of hear her voice under your voice a little bit. I just want to point out one common mistake is like I very love playing. Like that's a common mistake, people. Like with the verb, love, you have to say really love playing. That's a common mistake people make. But I want to say something good too. You said they play it religiously, what I thought was a great collocation. So save that expression if you get sports again. And definitely the speed, like vocabulary grammar, 6. Okay, it wasn't like the greatest, it wasn't a good enough range for a 7 anywhere, but it was enough to communicate. Fluency, I would say more of like a 5 because of the speed, and the pronunciation kind of a 5 too, because it was sometimes a little bit difficult to understand exactly what you're saying, and that could be also because of my connection. So we'll see. I would like to default to Adrian a bit more for this one if I can.
Oh, fair enough, Adam. Before you default to me, what would be your? I'm going to type. Before Adam tells us this, you won't see it because it's underneath Adam here, my score, but I've typed it, and so you can see that we're independent. What would be your overall score if you had to just base it on that answer, Adam?
5.5.
Okay, everybody, look at this. There, I just brought it up on the screen. You will see it. I did not type that. You saw me just scroll that up with the cursor. And what do you see? The exact same score, 5.5. So
I think Adrian's just testing me.
No, well, it's not. It's. I mean, as everybody can see, examiners are quite consistent between each other. So this is why most of the time when you do an EOR, the score doesn't change all that much. So examiners are quite trained. British Council, IDP, they usually hire people that have been assessing English for quite a number of years and have quite a good idea. So so both of us scored a 5.5 here, and my score is also based on fluency and accuracy. So I felt like the language kind of got stuck, so I felt as the examiner I was waiting like, okay, and here's the answer, and here's the answer, instead of okay. So and then yes, very like my friends. So there were a couple of kind of awkward responses there. So Owen, overall it was understandable. You communicated. You can certainly get by with English. Now what your goal needs to be is to increase your speed, increase your accuracy. So lots of feedback and lots of practice. That's the key, and that's what you're doing. So you're in the right place and you're on the right track, Owen, okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
I was very nervous. It is the first time I talked to you.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about this one about nervousness, but people are usually quite nervous on the IELTS, and that does affect their score. And that's why Adam said like part 1 is basically to try to get the person as comfortable as possible. So you really, you really want to just take a couple of deep breaths in the IELTS and realize that it's not the end of the day, and the sun will shine tomorrow. Owen, come back again in the future and volunteer again, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Yes, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Sorry, I didn't give Owen a chance to ask us questions. I think maybe she had a question there, but we'll give somebody else a chance here. So let's do this. Let's jump to Kevin here. Kevin's a long-time member of our channel and contributor, and Kevin, in fact, is also planning to be an English instructor. So he, let's give him a chance to get some insights into his potential future career here, Adam. Kevin, are you still there? Let's see if Kevin is with us, and then we'll talk to Kevin. Owen, very well done. Look at all the support you're getting in the chat. People are giving you claps and thumbs up, and you deserve it. Okay.
Seriously.
So yeah, absolutely. For everybody who's here with us and volunteers, yeah, I mean, you're incredible people. I would be shaking in my boots if I had to do this for a Japanese exam on a Japanese website, even though I can get by in Japanese. So. All right.
And Adrian, can I give one quick suggestion?
Absolutely.
So so I can be, because Adrian and I are figuring this out too, and I think we're doing pretty well. Maybe before you start the question, if you could mute yourself, because I'm trying to mute you on Zoom.
Okay.
And just get the feed from the YouTube, and then that way at least I'll catch more of it.
I got you. So you want?
I don't want to give you more tasks to do. You're already juggling a lot of things.
I'm learning. You want me to mute myself, just to be clear, on Zoom?
Yeah, just like when you're about to start the interview, like if you could zoom yourself on Zoom, and then I can just catch the YouTube feed.
Okay, so I'll do my best, because I'm also okay. Yes, so I'll mute myself on Zoom. Okay, sure, sounds good.
Sorry.
No, I got you. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello back to you, Mr. Adrian. I'm so glad that you finally called me.
All right, Kevin. Can you just tell everybody, of course not everybody knows you here, where you are in the world and why you are into IELTS?
Yes, so I am calling right now from Hanoi. It's the capital of Vietnam. And the reason why I'm sitting the IELTS test is because I want to further my education. More specifically, I need a band 8.5 overall to be eligible for my master's degree in English linguistics.
All right. And having said that, let's jump into part 3 question, Kevin. Here we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. What are some of the biggest sporting events in the world, and where are they held?
I think the 2 biggest sporting competitions in the world right now are the Olympics and the World Cup. The locations or the venues for these events are usually the stadiums in first world countries or developed countries. But sometimes they are hosted by different developing countries, like back in 2000, if I'm not mistaken, Japan and Korea hosted the Olympics.
Why are these such big events in the world?
I guess perhaps it's because they have millions, if not billions, of viewers around the world, or even spectators coming directly to the host country to spectate the events. And they are also one of the most highest grossing industries, with athletes and coaches making billions per year.
All right, let's stop there. Adam, I'm still talking to you through YouTube, so let's try this. Let me know if it's better. Adam, give us your feedback, what you think about this. I've unmuted now.
Good. I thought like it's an interesting one. Before I even give the score, he's got all the tools to get an 8 or 9, like with regards to grammar and vocabulary, like spectators. I think I'm not sure if spectate is a verb. Like it's certainly one I don't use, nor can I recall seeing. Adrian,
I do. Yes. I mean, this is where our English differs. English is huge, right? Yes, to spectate, I believe.
Yeah,
yes.
I know, but like it's just I've always, but yeah, it's correct. It's just but I really like the venues. It just you I don't know how else to say it. Like it's definitely like an 8. There were no noticeable that I caught vocabulary. The range was good. The range was good for grammar. The only thing that needs improvement is the fluency. And like it was a 7 or 8 and like close to an 8, but it still felt a little deliberate. It just didn't feel fully comfortable. Now that could be because you're same reason I'm maybe, there's people watching, it's nervous, but yeah, I just thought it was so close to an 8 or 8.5 overall. You're very clear. It just felt a little deliberate is all. Like, the way Adrian and I are talking now, it's like, the words just kind of come out, and your vocabulary would be like almost better than even I might say in some regards. So very impressed with the vocabulary, very impressed with the grammar. It's just the fluency will come with repetition.
Yeah. And again, everybody needs to remember that here we're looking at one question and answer or 2 questions and answers.
Right.
But of course, in the real IELTS, Kevin, the examiner is looking at all of this. And in this sense, it's not completely fair what we're doing because this was the first question you had on this topic. Of course, the more you start talking about this topic, the more your brain works in this topic, the more fluent you become, right? So I would have scored you about the same. I would have scored you a band 8. For me, Kevin, it was the content that was missing. So I felt like you had good vocabulary and you had good answers, but they didn't have enough detail or complexity. So I felt like they were somewhat simple in content. So you said, I think the 2 biggest sporting competitions in the world are the World Cup and the Olympics. They are held in developing and wealthy countries. And for instance, they're like, why, right? Because it costs $1 billion to host the Olympics, and it's just not affordable for many of the poorer countries. So countries like the big countries like Brazil, United States, Russia, Canada, UK tend to host the Olympics, right? So it's that content that I felt could have given you more of a score, more of a range, and potentially more fluency as well, Kevin. So really think about that explanation example concept when you're going into those answers. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, Kevin.
Sorry for the delay.
I think
just a minor disagreement. Like I felt
anyway,
part of
Domenico,
what
right? So he was saying,
we're trained as
he couldn't
examiners
hear
is like a lot of people think
Adams
there's
speaking,
one
and neither
follow-up
can
question.
Mr.
I felt
Adrian.
like his
So I was
answer
just
was
plugging
good
in,
enough. Like
I mean, I plugged in
it was
my
good enough. Like I
earphone
couldn't
from another
say
device,
his
and,
like this is where the
to be
examiner
able
would
to
kind of
follow
like
what,
in
Mr. Adams is saying.
the book. It's called a 2-way discussion. And a lot of people train
Are you still
like
with me, Mr. Adrian?
these
Yes.
longer answers, and that's a smart strategy
Yes.
because if you're in control of the conversation,
Just
then the
can I
examiner
have just
can't
a
trip you
small
up.
question?
But
Just a sec, Kevin. Just a sec. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
We're talking over top of each other because of the multiple systems, but just give it a second, right? It's the unfortunate 6-second delay with YouTube that makes it tricky, everyone. So there's 2 interesting concepts going here. Now, here's a great test of English for everybody. Were you able to follow both Kevin and Adam at the same time? I was. So I listened to both Adam and I listened to Kevin at the same time, and they were both talking about an interesting concept. So we'll cover both of these. Adam, was disagreeing with some of what I said, and he had an interesting idea there. So let's listen to Adam first, and then Kevin will listen to you. Okay, so just a sec, Kevin. All right, go ahead, Adam.
So Adrian's point is it's very apt, or it's very appropriate, because I do kind of train people to kind of control the conversation, because then you're limiting the amount of time the examiner might take you off, like take you away from your comfort zone. But I felt like it was enough, because as Adrian said, you could say, well, why do you think it is often first world countries, right? And then that could be, that could be like a conversation. Like there could be 2 or 3 follow-up questions, right? Like it's literally called part 3, two-way discussion. They don't often become discussions, but they can be. And I was pretty satisfied with the amount. It could have been longer, but it wasn't too short either,
Okay.
I thought.
So this is a really important point, everybody, is that examiners don't have the exact same concept of what is enough or what is more. You have to feel the conversation in some sense, and of course that's a part of that band 789. Kevin, please go ahead and state your question. I think that was a good question that you had going there too. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yes. So unfortunately, my question, this one is more about the writing test. So is it appropriate for me to ask it right now, Mr. Adrian?
Go ahead, yeah.
I really have. Yes. So, hello, Mr. Adam. I don't think I can hear you very well, but I will probably watch the recording again. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Anyway, so my question is for the writing section, especially writing task 1 for the process task, as an applied linguistic major. I learned that the use of subordinating and coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, it suggests that the clause, the main clause has more important details than the other clause. So is that applicable for the IELTS test? Because I noticed that when there are samples online, and this detail is not really followed strictly.
And I'm on delay. Is it okay, Adrian?
Yeah, I can restate that question as well.
No,
So-
I caught it actually,
okay.
thankfully. So I just didn't know how much dead time I was leaving. I don't. First of all, thank you for the kindness. But like you said, maybe I did miss part of it. Like you're saying like to put more emphasis on the subordinating clause, or which?
Yes, that was it. So I think what Kevin was saying is that when you're writing, and Kevin, that's not just for writing. We could take that and think about it in the context of speaking as well. So if you're familiar with the correlative subordinating conjunctions, and the subordinating conjunction is made up of 2 phrases: the subordinate and the main clause, also called the dependent and independent clause. And the question here is it true that the subordinate clause or the dependent clause will carry more weight than the main or the independent clause? So let me give everybody an example of what Kevin is saying here. So what he would say is something like, let's say, although wealthy countries host the Olympics, they have been held in developing countries as well. So in this case, the dependent clause is this piece here, the although wealthy countries host the Olympics. So what Kevin is asking is it true that that part of the sentence, of this complex sentence, carries more emphasis, carries more weight than the second part, which would be in this case considered the main clause? That was the question, Adam.
I just think like I wouldn't worry about separating. Like they've been held in developing. If you reverse it, right, they've been held in developing countries, even though wealthy countries host it. Like, I think it's like this looks more academic, of course, but I mean, like it's not. It really depends on what you want to emphasize. Like that's not I don't want to give like a cop-out answer, but like I think the exact wording of this is perfect, right? And I'd like to hear Adrian's opinion, but it depends on the appropriacy of it, and this is very appropriate. And as far as like one being more than the other, no, it's kind of how they go together, rather than like one being emphasized.
Yeah, this is right. So what Adam is saying is true. This is a very complicated topic. And when you do get into those high levels of English and literature, you can start to think about it this way. Firstly, I think it's too much for the IELTS. I don't think you have to understand English literature at this level for the IELTS. Now, for you, Kevin, for somebody who's in linguistics, sure. Yeah, it becomes much more interesting. There is, and this comes from psychology as well, there's what's called a recency effect. So what that means is that what we hear or see first often will carry weight or added weight or emphasis. So here, because we see the although wealthy countries host the Olympics, and that's what we hear first, that's what we target first with our attention. So it's possible that that carries more weight. But as Adam said, we can reverse that and we can make the main clause carry that emphasis. So we can say the Olympics have been held in developing countries, although wealthy countries do host the Olympics more often. So we can, and that's the reason that we can switch the main clause with the dependent clause. So it's not that, Kevin, it's not so much that the subordinate clause has more of the emphasis, rather in writing what comes first, or speech what comes first, and also the intonation. So especially in speaking, how we say it, what we tend to put the stresses on or the emphasis on in our intonation can affect the emphasis as well. So there's multiple pieces there. And yes, I mean, students, once you get to those intermediate advanced levels, you want to look at language at this level of detail, because not just for the IELTS, but for your professional and academic life, it's a big part of achieving success. So yes, you do. Kevin, I hope that, does that kind of answer your question, Kevin, between Adam and I? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. All right. Kevin, thank you for volunteering. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And have an awesome rest of the day.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Bye, Kevin. All right, everybody. Wow, time just flies when you're having fun, Adam. We've been at this for more than 2 hours, and Chen and Carolina and a lot of our viewers have stuck it out with us. They've been here with us for the whole 2 hours. So how does everybody feel about that? How did everybody feel about being in such a long lesson? Did everybody notice the time that we've been here for this long? For me, it just flew by. Like, you know, I could probably keep this going, like Adam said, for another hour, but we have to call it. If you liked this, let us know. We're using the chat interface on the website, everybody. And if you like this session, you like this lesson, you let us know, because there's a good chance we could repeat this in the future. Maybe we can convince Adam to come back and visit us again in coming days and weeks. So I hope you learned a lot of good vocabulary, good tips, good strategies. To join the Premium IELTS on our website, click that big red button there, or the big red one at the end of the video there. For General IELTS, make sure that you go to gieltshelp.com. And again, to ask questions about Adam, about his YouTube channel, you can send Adam an email as well. And as you can tell, I mean, Adam is as pro as it gets when it comes to IELTS in English. So you can check out IELTS Band Up on YouTube, and you can email Adam at ieltsbandup@gmail.com. Here's his YouTube channel. I will put that into the chat as well, and we'll probably update the description to have that information also. Is that okay, Adam, if we put that in the description?
Absolutely. And just another thank you to Adrian. Like, I just peeked at my email and I already someone asking for a tutoring session. So that's thanks, Adrian. You know,
absolutely.
It's just an absolute pleasure, because like it's just kind of fun to share this information. Like I said, I could go on for hours because it's just so meaningful to help people do something. It's, for most people, it's the most or second most important exam in their life.
Yeah.
Right.
And it shouldn't be a mystery. The IELTS should not be a mystery. Unfortunately, it is a lot of times for people, in the sense of they don't know how they're being marked. They don't know what works, what doesn't work, what kind of tips they should listen to. And it's a difficult situation, Adam, that, as you said, it's arguably top 3 most important tests a person will take in their life. And they probably have more confusion about it than any other test that they take, which is not good. So we're here to help with that. We're here to create clarity, guidance, direction, and you can join these live classes weekly. I'll be back on Tuesday with more live classes. We usually have classes on Friday, Saturday as well. And emails, Adam, you can contact him, you can contact me. Here's my email again. We want you to go into your IELTS exam confidently and knowing what you need to do. Thank you so much to all of our members. Thank you, moderators. Chen, Carolina, you've been so fantastic today helping us out. Thank you to all of our viewers. And again, a special thank you to Adam for taking these late hours. I think it's way past midnight now for you.
1:10 a.m.
Yeah,
but like
it's
I said,
1:10 in the morning. I mean,
when you're doing something fun, it doesn't matter.
So yeah.
Thanks, Adrian.
So let's give Adam a big, give him some emojis there in the chat. He deserves it. He deserves it the most today, I think. All right, everybody. Thank you to our volunteers as well for being brave and courageous. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. Adam is leaving us from beautiful Seoul, Korea, right?
No, I'm actually in a city you've never heard of. So in the southern part of South Korea. So yeah.
All right. From the other side of the world. Signing out is Adam. And hopefully we'll see Adam back here again. Bye, everybody. Have an awesome rest of your week and have a great start to your weekend. Bye for now.